Thanks for checking out this video. So I'm excited to give you my top 15 horror films of 2023. And some people may be like, why are you doing 15? Everyone does 10. I extended it out because one, there are some movies that I think really do need to be mentioned as being quite good this year. And also, there are some on this list that actually were released in prior years internationally, and they just came to like streaming in the United States this year. So I included those as part of the 2023. So just know that. Also, a bit of a disclaimer on this. I have not seen every single movie that came out in 2023. This is just of what I've seen, which is well over 50. So I have a decent sample size. This is what I really liked. And obviously these lists are very personal for people, and I will talk to some of the personal aspects of why I like some of these movies so much. And yours is going to be different, I'm sure. And that's why I encourage people to comment and put the information down there on, what are your top 10, top 15, top 5, however many you want to throw out. And just let me know, because it's fun to share those things, and I really do like seeing what everyone else likes. The other thing I wanted to say is, obviously I didn't see everything. I didn't see certain things on certain streaming services that were exclusive because I don't have every streaming service, because I'm not going to pay for every streaming service. So like a film, for example, like Totally Killer that I've heard a lot of people like. I haven't seen Totally Killer. I don't have Amazon Prime. So I'm just never going to see that movie, basically. But another thing is Godzilla Minus One is not on my list because I have not seen it. It came out in the theater. I was not able to find time to actually go see it in a theater. So it'll come to streaming eventually, and that's when I'll watch it. So it'll be in my consideration for 2024. And from what I'm hearing, it'll probably be on my list in 2024. But then again, you never know. So anyway, I'm about to get in. I'll give a little description of each one, and let's get into my top 15. So at number 15 is a movie that came out, I think it was actually December of 2022, Megan. Now, Megan actually surprised me because these types of films like Killer Dolls never hit great for me. And what I loved about this film is it was basically people coming together and saying, you know what the Chucky remake should have been? This movie. It is fun. It makes sense for the world that's created for the movie. There's good dread in it. There are some good kills, and it is just a really good time. And it feels like it doesn't take itself too seriously at any point. It's very highly entertaining, and it really caught me by surprise. I cannot believe that I ended up liking this, but it's about a killer robot doll in essence. So yeah, if you saw the Chucky remake and were upset, you need to make sure you see Megan, because this is what you should have gotten. Make it up for that. My number 14, Cocaine Bear. Yeah, I really enjoyed Cocaine Bear. My wife actually enjoyed it as well. Literally about a bear that accidentally eats cocaine and goes on a murdering spree. The kills are super fun. They're really gory. They're really well done. And there's really good humor in this film. Yes, it kind of falls apart a little bit towards the end, and the pacing is a big issue. But it is so much fun throughout. This is I believe it was Ray Liotta's final film he was ever in before he passed. R.I.P. Ray Liotta. But it is just a fun time. It is a funny time, and it has great gory kills, and you really can't ask for much else. And when the movie was coming out, it was just such a joke. But it's actually a good film, and it looks great. It's shot super well. So that's why 14 is Cocaine Bear. So now my number 13, a film that came out and I thought people would like a little bit more, didn't really get talked about much when it came out, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Now, by no means was this like an unbelievable film, but for what the premise is, I thought they did such a great job. It literally is about the Demeter, the vessel that takes Nosferatu to the New World, and what happened to that crew. Now, if you've seen Nosferatu or really any Dracula movie, you pretty much know that what happened to the crew of the Demeter is they were killed. Like, that's how the ship shows up in Bram Stoker's Dracula or in Nosferatu, is everyone on the ship is gone or dead. So we already know what happens. So for that reason, writers are kind of backed into a corner, but I think they did a really good job kind of playing around with that and doing as much as they could. And there's a really cool kind of comparison of like something on the boat versus how another thing is kind of viewed like that thing. You'll know what I'm talking about. I think you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but the design of the Dracula itself looks pretty good, actually. It's not you know, like your nice looking Dracula or like good looking Dracula. It is like bat winged Dracula, which is a lot of fun. And I thought it was a really good ending to the film too, in addition. And it's something I didn't see coming, and it's shot extremely well. I mean, Andre Overdahl did it. He's very good. Great cinematics. So I really did enjoy Last Voyage of Demeter. So that's why it's my number 13. Now, number 12, a film that was on Netflix and no one talked, like pretty much no one has talked about. The Pale Blue Eye, starring Christian Bale. It also has Gillian Anderson in a small role and Robert Duvall in a small role. It is literally about an inspector for the military who is supposed to be figuring out why recruits, cadets, have been dying, and they've had kind of things removed from them, so it seems like maybe there's a ritualistic aspect to it. It also has a young Edgar Allan Poe in it as one of the main characters, and it's shot so well. The look of the shooting locations is awesome and very like wintry and cold, which adds to the overall atmosphere of the film. It's just so well done. And I mean, Christian Bale does an amazing job as the leading person in this movie. And it's a really good story, and it really plays out extremely well. And I think it's highly underrated too. Like I said, no one's really talking about it, but that's why The Pale Blue Eye is my number 12. Coming in, coming in at number 11, a wonderful slasher, Thanksgiving. Eli Roth's Thanksgiving had so much fun to it. It is literally about a slasher terrorizing a town on and around Thanksgiving because of a Black Friday sale gone awry from the year prior. And what is it about? It's about what you would think an Eli Roth slasher would be about. It's about comedy, and it's about gore, and it's about inventive kills. You get all that stuff. Patrick Dempsey is in it, and he does a really nice job in the film. I don't think there are any... I can't remember off the top of my head if there are any other big names, but I don't remember any other big names other than Patrick Dempsey. But really good film, really fun time, and that's pretty much all I can say about it. So Thanksgiving is my number 11. Number 10, this is one that a lot of people didn't really like all that much, but I thought was actually really good, and that is M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. The impact of the story to this and the isolation of the story is so interesting. It's about a couple who goes off to a cabin in the woods, and so a knock comes at the cabin, as you would assume, and a group of people show up who have bad intentions. So it's a little Strangers-esque. It's a little like Them, which was the original version of The Strangers in French, but it's where it goes. I didn't fully know where it was going to go. I think it's a very interesting story. I think it's a very well told. And the other thing is, Dave Bautista is in this as a very important character, and his performance I didn't see coming. I know that he's done a good job as Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, but this is a different role, and he does such a good job at it, and it's just a very good, well-done film. Plus, M. Night Shyamalan knows how to make films look good, so that's why Knock at the Cabin gets my number 10. Now coming in at number 9, the A24 film Talk to Me. A lot of people highly praising this. Some people keep putting it like in their top 5. It doesn't quite get there for me. It is quite good, though. It's a original take on possession, basically. It's about some kids who decide to use this kind of like mummified hand that they find that was supposed to have been a medium's mummified hand that they had. And they start messing around with it. Like, they party and they basically use it to possess themselves. And it's about how that can get out of control, how it does get out of control, and where things go from there. And it's shot extremely well. It has very interesting characters to it, and the premise is good, because a lot of possession films are very, very much feeling the same to me a lot of the times, and this one feels very different, and it does kind of its own unique things. So that's why my number 9 is Talk to Me. I thought it was quite good. From Australia, by the way. I want to note when they're not from the U.S. Now that brings me to my number 8, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Now, this is a film that's a take on Frankenstein. This is one of the most interesting takes on Frankenstein I've seen in a very long time personally. It's in an urban setting, and it features a girl who is extremely smart. She's very good at science, and she is having some really terrible issues with her life situation. She has lost her brother. She is seeing people being lost all around her, and this film deals a lot with trauma and also a lot of other societal issues that you could probably guess when you start watching the film. but it does it in such a heartfelt, emotional, interesting, and important way. This film has a lot to say, and it, like I said, it's one of the most interesting updates of the Frankenstein story that I've ever seen. Plus, I think it actually looks pretty good for being kind of like a more independent, lower budget film. And the main actress, who is the angry black girl in this case, does a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. So really love that film. That's why number 8 is The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. Now going to number 7, another one that people didn't really talk about. It was on Shudder, Sharksploitation. I'm a big fan of documentary films, and I didn't know how it was going to be when Sharksploitation came out. It's literally a documentary about the role of sharks in horror films, but it ends up going beyond that. They do a really good job of bringing in so many shark, like Jaws and like Jaws ripoff type films, and anything shark related and aquatic in horror into this documentary. They talk about it at length, so there's a good nostalgia factor. They get some really good interviews with people, but also experts who know about sharks and know about the ocean. And that adds a whole different spin onto it. And it also has a very important message at the end of it that I think is unexpected, but also really important and really good. And I think that if you like documentaries, especially if you like horror-related documentaries, or even just things having to do with sharks, you should check out Sharksploitation. I really liked it. So that's why it's my number 7. Now, number 6. This one is from Japan, and this is another one that came out actually a few years prior, but just made it to the United States this year, well, 2023, and that is Woman of the Photographs. Now, I will admit, this one isn't outright horror. There's like a horror element to it. It's not super strong, and some people watch it and be like, I don't really consider it horror. I definitely do, especially where things land in the end of this film. But it's about a man who is kind of just ho-hum about his life, and he's just very task-oriented doing his job. He meets a woman who has some body dysmorphia issues, and the two of them end up coming together and having a relationship that kind of showcases their issues and makes issues worse. And it has a horror element to it. I don't want to say too much how it goes, but it is available on Vudu. I think that's one that's actually streaming for free with ads on Vudu, so you could check that out there. But I highly recommend this film. It's very emotionally done. It looks great. It's very low budget and independent, but they do so much with the story in this, and the way everything ties together in the end, it makes you consider things in everyone's life, really, that really need to be thought about, and that mainly being, you know, how much you're living your life for yourself versus living your life for others, or living your life through others. And I think the film just really hit me in such a profound way, and I think it's outstanding. So that's why my number 6 is Woman of the Photographs. Now coming in at number 5 is another A24 film, and this is also another film that some people may be like, is that really horror? But it definitely has horror elements to it, and I think that it qualifies in this case for me, and that is the Nicolas Cage-helmed Dream Scenario. A24 does a great job, and especially when it's, you know, holding the mirror up to society and saying, these are the ills right now, these are things we should be talking about and thinking about. Dream Scenario does that. It kind of takes head on the idea of online identities, people wanting to be more known, and cancel culture, and when cancel culture gets out of control as well. And it stars Nick Cage, who does an unbelievable job. This is his best performance since the film Pig, which he was phenomenal in. I love that movie. And he's just so good. He chews up the scenery, and really, if you like Nick Cage, this is a must-see. But it's basically about him. He's like a university professor who ends up showing up in people's dreams. And he's just kind of, at first, he's just there. But then over time, he starts being more involved in people's dreams, and it's how he kind of becomes famous, but then all the issues that end up coming after that. And it is very A24, so things get very dreamlike, things get a little bit out there and odd, but I think it's a really good film. It's extremely good looking, and I really think people should check it out. So that's why my number 5 is Dream Scenario. Now, my number 4. This is another film that came out in prior years, but just made it to the U.S. this year, and that is the Belgian film Megalomaniac. This film has been compared to Martyrs, the French extreme film Martyrs. Now, I won't say I will say that it's not as hard to watch and as depressing as Martyrs, but it's a depressing film. It's very dark. There's not a single nice or hopeful thing that happens in the entire movie. It looks dark because that's the atmosphere it's trying to give, but it's basically about a primarily the sister, but a sister and brother who their father was a serial killer who was never caught. He ends up passing away, and the brother needs to pick up the mantle of his father, or feels that he does, to continue his work, to complete his work. Meanwhile, the sister is just kind of there, and she's trying to find her way in life and understand how she fits into actually just living a life and trying to have a bit of a life, but not draw attention to herself and her brother because of what her brother's doing and who her father was. And it is just dour. It is dark. It is depressing, but it is so well shot. It is so well executed. It's so well acted. And it has a really interesting take at the very end of it of kind of this cyclical patriarchal oppression that for some reason we're just stuck in. Not for some reason. It's pretty easy to figure out, but I'm not going to go far into that. But Megalomaniac hits in a very dark, messed up way, but I really appreciated the film, so that's why it's my number 4. Now, coming into number 3, one that no one saw coming, it was on nobody's radars, and it really took people by surprise in a great way. No One Will Save You, the film that's, I believe, still on Hulu at this point. It's about a woman who has really bad anxiety, who lives by herself in her town and is kind of ostracized for a reason you'll understand in the movie, and how she's the focus of all of a sudden one night there's an alien invasion, and she's trying to get away from this alien invasion. It's extremely well shot. There's almost no dialogue in the film. The dialogue that is in it is important, but it's very hard for filmmakers to make a really good, engaging film when there's no dialogue, and this film shows exactly how that is the case, that you can actually pull that off. The aliens, I think, are well designed. They actually feel scary, in my opinion, and the aspect of this film that plays to anxiety is something that personally resonates with me, being a person who has anxiety issues, has had and still deals with anxiety problems. This film is really about facing mental health issues in general, and how in the end it really is up to you and no one is going to save you, like the film says, and the way that plays out and the way it ends in the end. And it's a very interesting metaphor, and I just think this film is extremely well done. So that's why my number 3 is No One Will Save You. Now, coming in at number 2, another one that people have talked about a lot, and it's ending up on a lot of people's top 10s. This is a film from Argentina, and that is by Damien Rugnar, who did When Evil Lurks. This is another very dark film. It is very unrelenting. Again, I don't think there's a single nice or happy thing that happens in this film, just like Megalomaniac. But it is such an interesting story. It is such a messed up, downward spiral of a story that has to do with two brothers who end up finding a man who is possessed in their town and decide to take it upon themselves to get rid of the body. Now, was that the right thing to do? No, it wasn't, because then Pandora's boxes open at that point, and it's about the descent after that. I think this film ends up being a really interesting kind of metaphor for people who feel like they can never do anything right in their life, and they're just screw-ups, and where things lead them and how it makes them feel. I think this film was just trying to capture an overall terrible feeling, kind of like when Pascal Laugier did the film Martyrs, and he was going through a deep depression, and he just wanted to visually put on the screen what he was internally going through. I think this film does a similar thing, but it is very interesting. It's very messed up at times, and they go some places that you really expect they're not going to go, because a lot of films won't dare to do it, and I applaud them for doing it. So When Evil Lurks, my number 2. That brings me to my number 1, and guess what? It's another A24 film, Beau is Afraid. A lot of people skipped on this movie. It may be because it was a 3-hour-long film, and I was like, oh, man, that's so much to sit down and watch at once. But I will tell you, this movie moves so fast for a 3-hour film. Ari Aster does a phenomenal job. Loved Hereditary, loved Midsommar, and I also love Beau is Afraid, and I obviously think it's the best film of 2023 for horror. It's deeply personal, like all of Ari Aster's films. It feels like he puts so much of his own anxieties into this. It's about a man named Bo, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who does an unbelievably amazing job, like you would assume. I mean, we all know Joaquin Phoenix does an amazing job. He lives in fear, basically. It's literally Bo is afraid. It's about him living in fear, and it's about him going through life. And there's a lot of metaphorical, weird stuff that goes on in the film that's just all for kind of like visual, dreamlike things. But in the end, it's basically about the issues that we all struggle with. The issue of how we were raised and how that can lead to mental health struggles, but also the issue of us wanting to lead our own lives, but feeling like we owe things to other people that keeps us in mental health issues or from living our lives the way maybe we want to or maybe the way we should. And so it's kind of about that struggle, and it feels deeply personal. Like I said, it looks phenomenal because Ari Aster always makes it look great, and he's a writer director, and he actually has a small part in the film, which I think points to it being even more extremely personal. But this is a film that you could probably watch numerous times, and you're going to see different things every single time. Yeah, it goes off the rails in certain ways from time to time, and it does some really weird stuff that's kind of out there. But when that's happening, it's ridiculous kind of on purpose. It kind of steps into this tongue-in-cheek situation, and I think the whole film was kind of meant to be like that. But the way that Aster really, kind of evokes emotion from the audience is very commendable. It means that he knows exactly how to construct scenes and how to write and how to get people to kind of feel what the characters are feeling, and that's the hallmark of a wonderful writer and director. So that's why my number one pick is Bo is Afraid. So that's it. I'm excited to start getting to work watching all the other movies, all the movies that'll be coming out in 2024. Also, if you have recommendations for 2023 movies that I didn't talk about, you can put them down here. Or if you have questions of, did you watch this one? Because I thought it would be on your list, but it's not. Something like Scream 6. I watched it. It just wasn't on my list. It didn't hit the top. Or Evil Dead Rise. I watched it. It just didn't make my top 15. Something like that. And then again, I want to hear what other people have for their top 10, 5, 3, whatever you want to do. Even if you want to do your top 50, go ahead, lay it down in the comments. I'm down with it. But thank you so much for checking this out. Do me a favor, please hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That's your best way to repay me for the free content. And you can hit the notification bell button because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which is pretty constant. Anyway, thanks everyone for checking this out. Until next time, keep it brutal.